But hello, everyone, to anyone that's tuning in now or later. Today we are back with Dr. Tawny Kross, and we are talking about, drum roll, we're talking about repeating the same exercises.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so okay, before you tune out, Pilates teachers, yoga instructors, or anyone with a movement practice where I guess even, like if you train in the gym, you're doing the same exercises over and over again, we're going to be talking about why this may not be helpful for you, especially if you're dealing with chronic pain.
hmm
So, Tawny, why don't you go ahead and set the stage for us?
Yeah, I think one thing, and I'm sure, Kim, you can also elaborate on this, and for people that are joining, you can let us know as well. I don't know if you feel like if you're an instructor, you see people come back and they're like, okay, I'm still doing the same thing and nothing is changing. If that is something that's happening, you're repeating the same exercises with your clients, or you're a client that is trying the same thing and maybe you're getting a little bit of relief sometimes with the thing that you're doing, but it just feels like you have to do it all the time, like forever. You're like, okay, I gotta repeat it, gotta repeat it, gotta repeat it. Like my pain's not changing. That is something that I think we are really, really speaking to today. And Kim, I don't know if you wanted to jump in to say like if that's something you've seen in your practice.
Oh, well, again, like I've said, from a movement professional perspective, dealing with chronic pain people is like, to me, just a very different beast. And we definitely, absolutely, this comes into play where I feel like um, that really got me started on thinking differently, is
Sure.
where I keep going to the same whiteboard and I'm like, that doesn't work. That doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And so you could have a moment of like self-reflectiveness where you think like, what am I not doing right? Or is it like, is it them? Is it me? So I definitely think, yes, absolutely, this happens a lot. And even with some of the right exercises, so even the best exercises for them, definitely we encounter this. And I think this is where it becomes very important about what we're talking about is working with the nervous system.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're right. Like, even if it is a right exercise, there's something going on underneath that we really want to explore. And that's what we're talking about today. So, Kim, I'd love to hear just your thoughts first on why you find repetition isn't always helpful.
Well, there's a lot. So I kind of wanted to go over three in particular that kind of all lead into additional tracks. So the first one that I want to talk about, and especially as a Pilates teacher, for over 30 years, and then practicing more than that, is that practicing the same movement, we're always going to use what is accessible to us. So a lot of chronic pain people, like their accessibility has been narrowed depending on how long they've been dealing with it and kind of not listening to their nervous system. So if we keep doing the same exercises and the same movements, then we're only using what they have accessible. And that in itself could be a problem, because the problem could be that they're not accessing what they really need to rely on for the nervous system to actually feel safe,
Mm-hmm.
right? So there's that. That's one of the things that I wanted to talk about. And then also, when we're doing the same movements over and over again, we're actually stating to the body and trying to conform it to how a movement is maybe supposed to aesthetically look, number one, or number two, we're trying to force it to be what we have conditioned as biomechanically correct, right? But sorry, I thought I had put myself on not disturb. So if we are designating how a movement needs to be or is supposed to be executed, then we're sort of limiting our nervous system as to the choices that it can make or that it can use. And I think we're also kind of shutting it up or shutting it down, or not having opportunity to, which would be my next point, is to kind of use that opportunity where we're not doing it a specific way repetitively over and over again, to explore like a stretch. Maybe it isn't straightforward, you know, like a hamstring stretch, just straightforward with the toes a specific way. Like maybe we need to twist a little bit. Maybe we need to adjust the pelvis. Like maybe we explore that in not a way that we're designating it or the movement is designating it, but we're asking our client to like, hey, what happens if you explore this a little bit? How does it feel? Or oftentimes when I know we're in a zone where it's possibly precarious, I will ask like, can you go a little bit deeper, or can you move this way? Like what happens if you do? And they have now learned to communicate. Like before it was like crickets, but now they've learned to communicate like, I kind of feel like I'm just like fighting it. And that's not where we want to be. We're not going to achieve anything if the nervous system is like, no, I'm guarding, I don't want to let go, or I don't want to do this, and Tawny, I'm sure you're going to speak on this, but I've heard my clients say like, oh, it doesn't like to do that. Oh, my shoulder doesn't like to do that. Oh, my body doesn't like to go into this range. Like there's like this little demon in their body, and that they've already associated negativity with that movement. So like forcing something to be a certain way and repeating that movement is not going to help them. It actually might make their nervous system guard more. It might definitely won't create an environment where we can maybe open up that range so that they can have access to more of what got closed off from the nervous system. Like I think of it like, like before, if any of you have ever fainted and it's like what do they call? The curtains are drawing close. That's kind of how I feel like the nervous system starts to react over time. And so hopefully we can kind of open the curtains open a little bit more, but we have to be allowing our clients or ourselves to listen to our nervous system and tell us and communicate and kind of feel it out, which I feel like when we're just going through a movement, we don't necessarily take the opportunity to do. So that was my long spiel about everything that I wanted to talk about. Tawny, I'm sure you have more to contribute in this.
Yeah, I actually was wanting to jump in back on something you shared earlier, which is that narrowing effect. The idea that you just feel like, okay, there's less and less I can do. And for people that are watching this, rewatching this, if you are someone that experiences chronic pain, you often may notice, like, I feel like I can do less and less over time. Like I have a shrinking life. Like I just feel like the things I love to do, it just feels like I can do less of that. And it is so common that we lean into the things that just feel okay or good. Or if we're not leaning into the things that feel okay or good, we're pushing too hard into the things that don't feel good. We're like, okay, maybe there's more growth if I can push into the pain, or there's more growth if I can just force this thing to transform, to be better. And the truth is, neither of those things are true. We live in the middle of the ground. So like I'm thinking about this person that I worked with earlier this week, and she was very much like, well, like it doesn't feel like when I go up a step, my right knee just doesn't feel good, so I just use my left knee instead. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense that you would just use your left knee more so than your right, because you're afraid of the pain, and you're also training your body to only use your left and not use your right. And she goes, okay, but if I use my right, then I get into this trap of my right knee hurting more and then buckling. And so that's a little trap that it feels like sometimes pain can put you into, or all the time can pain put you into. And so when we talk about repetition, that's usually what is occurring. We're repeating either the cycle of overdoing, pushing hard into pain, or we're repeating the cycle of, oh my gosh, that hurts so much, so I don't want to do it at all. And so again, we don't want to train those patterns even more. We actually want to help our systems identify how to do it and reassociate that movement with the good things, which I think is something that you kind of mentioned earlier. Like rewiring is about introducing novelty. It's about variability. It's about helping your system reassociate something that's good. And I don't, I don't know if I brought this up in a previous session before, but Kim, did I ever talk about like food poisoning?
Food poisoning?
Yeah.
No,
Does that sound familiar?
I don't think so.
Okay. I like to use this food poisoning example because I
Oh
kind
God,
of
that's awful.
so one of my favorite examples, and I think this shows how to think about repetition and training safety. So I had food poisoning from eating a raw oyster and it was like awful. Like if we're talking
Oh, sure.
all the GI stuff.
I mean, you'd rather just die than keep
Yeah,
going with food
it
poisoning.
was not fun. But that being said, my nervous system had a huge impression of like the oyster. So for a while, people would say oyster, I'd be like, I'm sorry, I can't. Right? It was such a guttural response, and it
Yeah.
would not be good nor helpful for me to just be like, well, let me just shovel in a bunch of raw oysters and like get over it like that. Like it's just
No.
terrible. It actually took me 20 years to even get into the idea of that. And part of it was because my husband was like, I love eating oysters. Would you at least be okay with I ate oysters around you? And I'm like, let me think about it. But over time, so it was like this rehearsal of, okay, there's not actually oysters like in my face. Like I'm not actually going to be swallowing oysters.
Mm-hmm.
And then I repeated that sort of messaging over time. And as I got comfortable with that messaging, like, okay, I'll be around you. Now I'll be around you if you eat the oyster. I'll watch
Right.
you, but I won't do it
Mm-hmm.
myself. And then slowly adding layers. And at some point in time, like I was like, okay, I'm gonna try an oyster, but it needs to be cooked, right? That was an extra layer. And I think that's how we want to think about repetition and movement
Mm.
is that how do we repeat these things while helping our systems like just get into a little bit of discomfort,
Yeah.
right? Because if we go back to that shoulder exercise that you talked about, like people are like, oh, that doesn't feel good. That response is no, that is not, that
Mm-hmm.
means something's wrong. That means something's harmful. And that's the messaging that your nervous system is
Or,
getting. No, this is bad.
or I can hurt myself.
Right. Or I can hurt myself.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So that being said, I think repetition is helpful and it needs to be done with a lens of also rewiring, of showing your nervous system that this thing that you're doing is safe. And I think you might have an example. I remember you were talking to me about chronic tightness. Maybe you can bring that in here.
Yeah. So not necessarily a chronic pain person, because I have a particular way of dealing with more in that world. But I think as movement practitioners and students, we deal a lot with chronic tightness. And that is along the same lines. It's not any different. We're still talking about a nervous system that's saying, I don't feel safe. So I'm going to go ahead and get tight again or feel tight or send those signals because it doesn't feel safe. So exactly what you're talking about, food poisoning. So it's like those baby steps, right? So yeah, I posted in my stories one of my clients who just has chronic pain, like tightness in the hip. And we know what it's associated with. And we've done a lot of work, have had a huge progress, but still has this kind of chronic hip issue. And so what we did was it wasn't actually a hip focused exercise. We were actually trying to do some shoulder, but challenge the hip. And so I heard these words come out of her mouth, and I feel like this comes out of a lot of chronic pain people's mouths is, my body doesn't like, or this hip doesn't like to do this. And that signal, and before maybe I'd be like, yeah, I know, I understand. Like now to me, it signals we have to switch something. We have to support it a little bit more so that it feels that it can take that little bite size oyster and do that. So we just I put a medicine ball, happened to be like the perfect height. And sometimes it'll take me a little bit to like, try this, perfect height. And then she's like, oh my gosh, that's so much better. It doesn't mean that she wasn't working the hip any less than she was before. And actually, she was now feeling like, oh, okay, like now the hip feels it has contact. As we know, the nervous system loves when it has contact, because then it's like, oh, I have a support system. And so it was able to go ahead and feel like, okay, yeah, I can put this hip down, and I can now go ahead and go on with my task. And I don't feel like it's overwhelming. And what was especially unique in this situation just recently was that not only did she like feel, oh my God, that was so much work, but it was accomplishable. After that, and we were moving away into the next exercise, she said, you know what I just realized is that my right hip was acting like that because it's actually my left leg that was like on fire. And so I think, and she's having this whole conversation just on her own, I think my right hip doesn't trust my left leg. And I'm like, that makes total sense. And so for me, I was like, I'm so glad that my clients can have that experience where they can be like, you know, I think it might have been having this reaction because of something else that was different. And I love having that opportunity, giving my clients that opportunity to like have this conversation with their nervous system, but also have this conversation with their body. So I'm not telling them anything. Mm-hmm. They're just getting the experience through their own internal self.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really love this word trust that you're bringing into it, because essentially that's what's happening is we're losing trust with our bodies. We're losing trust with what it can do. And the more we distrust our bodies and the fact that maybe we think our bodies are not helping us or it's somehow betraying us, the more our system gets protective and it goes, okay, this is not safe. This is not good. Like nothing in the world is safe and nothing that I'm doing is safe. And that just gives a lot of stressful messaging and creates more confusion rather than that trust and safety that you're looking for.
Yeah. So Tawny, how can we how can we know that we're on the right track of repetition? Because you did say that repetition is good, but how do we know when we need to like deviate or transition on something different?
For sure. I think a good way, just a general rule. You can blip that part out.
There's no hard way about this. It's like the total opposite.
There's no rigid rule. That being said, there is a general idea that if you're repeating and something, you're getting stuck somewhere, that would be an opportunity to explore. What is it that I am feeling in my body? Am I feeling distrust? What is it about this exercise that maybe is creating more stress rather than being helpful or effective? I think too, I don't love using pain as a guide, which sounds weird because people have had a lot of old messaging, and myself included, when I was in PT school, about like pain being like a vital sign or pain being like the rule of thumb. But I would say if pain seems to be increasing, you're getting into disruptive pain cycles, if it feels overwhelming and stressful and you're scared to do it, that is not something that I would repeat. Mm-hmm. If you notice, of course, if pain and tension shifts or decreases, that might be helpful. And what I would say is the most helpful place in terms of transforming and with repetition is if you notice that the thing that you're doing is challenging and it doesn't freak you out level of challenging. So if you're experiencing tension, or let's say your shoulder doesn't like it, and then when you do a different modification of the exercise, you're like, okay, my shoulder doesn't like it, and it actually feels okay to sort of explore. That would be an indication of that is a good thing to replicate. What do you think?
Yes. Yeah, no, absolutely. I like to try to encourage my clients to have a conversation with their nervous system while they're in like a maybe uncomfortable, or when they say those, my shoulder doesn't like this, or my shoulder doesn't want to do this. First, I usually back out of it a little bit. So either maybe we modify the same thing. So again, using the same kind of repetition, maybe it's a shoulder internal, external rotation exercise, but maybe we're not as deep in, like, say, the arm is up or arm to the side or whatever. We'll modify it a little bit and we'll kind of go from there. And then maybe I'll ask, can you go a little deeper? Maybe not. Maybe we'll just do some work there.
Mm-hmm.
But I like to have my clients, to encourage them to have a conversation. Like, I think sometimes when it doesn't work out the way, whatever we present, whatever reason, like maybe they think something's wrong with them, I like to just think, okay, it's just your nervous system saying, like, not today. It might even be just not today. So I like to tell them to, like, kind of observe it without judging it. Like, don't think that this is the way it has to be. Like, I'm honestly asking you, is it okay? Because if it's not, then that's fine. Like, no big deal. Like, there's like so much opportunity available to explore and to get your body better. So that's how I kind of I like to think of them having a dialogue with their internal nervous system.
Yeah.
Like, it could talk to them.
Which is
like, it could talk to them, which it is. But, you know, I sort of personify it, I guess is what people say.
Yeah. Which I honestly, personification to me is really valuable, because sometimes people get tied into, oh, I think that this is just me. Mm. And there needs to be a separation between, like, this is your protective part of you versus this is you. Like, this is just the way that you are, right? There's a valuable piece to being able to differentiate that. And so too is the checking in, because I don't think that most people without guidance take the time to check in with themselves and say, okay, like, what do I feel about this? How do I feel about this? And that's where a lot of, like, therapy, coaching, instructor, Pilates coaches come in, is we're asking people to pause, to think, okay, how does that feel? I'm thinking about a client I also worked with earlier. Was it just today? Might have been today. The day was long. But she was like, I can't just lift my hips up every single time I do it. It hurts. And I'm like, okay, well, let me just check back in with you. If you were to change that, and like, what part of it did you feel was uncomfortable? And I threw out questions and she answered them. And then at some point in time, we had modified the exercise, and I'm like, okay, now how does that feel? She's like, you know what? It still feels like a little bit challenging because I'm engaging my thigh and I don't like to engage my thigh. I'm like, yep, that's okay. I was like, and relative to that other exercise, how do you feel about this one? She goes, actually, it feels better. I'm like, good. And she's like, I don't think I would have thought this though. I'm like, no, for sure, because nobody's taking the time to really check in with themselves. And that's true, not just of her, but for so many people. And so I think that's where we become valuable in the beginning, is oftentimes we are being the second pair of eyes, the challenge to reflection that people sometimes need in order to start to grow that body awareness and body connection.
Yeah. So I think today we're finally going to do some stuff together, and I hope that people stayed around so that we can try some stuff together. Tawny, do you want to start first and just talk about self-talk that we can use to encourage our nervous system?
Sure. I do see someone on this call, so I just wanted to check in. If whoever is on this call, I don't know if you're still on, I would love to know if you have either seen a common thought or you experience a common thought around pain. I can certainly throw them out, but I think it's always more fun and more engaging and helpful when we start to bring in feedback from people that are watching. So I'm just going to pause for like 30 seconds so and just chat with you for a second, Kim.
Yeah. I have one. No pain, no gain, right?
Yeah, that is a good one, right? And then maybe let's come up with two more that might come out.
Associated with pain?
Yeah, like, or unhelpful thoughts that come along with exercise.
Oh, there's something wrong with me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, I think, people rely on, like, oh, I should get an MRI, or I should, like, there are people who are walking around with, like, really, like, structural damage and not having pain. So I think we associate that there must be something one, physically wrong, and two, wrong with me. I think that's a very common one I come across.
Yeah. So let's see if we can condense one into more specific to movement. So when I think about movement, yes, for sure, there's that broken, like something's wrong piece, and it might be something like, if I feel pain, I'm not doing this right.
Ah, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think definitely. I mean, I encounter them all. So yes.
Yeah. So when that thought comes up, I think the self-talk technique becomes, you know what, like, even though there's pain, it doesn't mean something's wrong. Like that would be one thing that you can start to reflect. Or in the world of pain science, we have like several phrases we use, like hurt doesn't equal harm.
Oh,
Right?
I
Like
like that
it's
one.
not
I
harm.
mean, it seems simple, but I like
Yeah.
it.
There's a lot of alliteration out there. There's like sore but safe, or like I like to say throbs aren't threats. um, but that being said, yeah, whatever your self-talk is, like let's say I need to push through pain. If I don't feel anything, that's the flip end of things. If I don't feel anything, that means I'm not doing it right. Right? There's like it feels pain, then I'm doing it wrong. If I don't push through pain, then I'm not doing it right. I'm not being effective enough. And so when you notice thoughts like that, just take a pause and be like, oh yeah, those crazy Tawny and Kim people said said that I'm actually okay. That even though it hurts, I can find a way to modify this so it hurts a little bit less, and I'm making more gains.
Yeah. I love all of those, even if they are a little cheesy. I don't care. So I wanted to take us, so for chronic pain, I deal a lot with neck. And actually I did want to bring up this example, but I kind of liked the way my previous example with the hip and the medicine ball support. But I wanted to bring up this example with a client I don't see regularly, but is definitely a chronic pain person. Number one, I talked to them about their nervous system, which to them, like all of a sudden, it was like for the first time they've ever been heard, which, and they've had literally every test imaginable done, every modality and on the list done, no changes, and had a genuine fear of touching her neck, because a lot of it is obviously stemming. This is like the problem area, the head and the neck. And I had to, and I did, I asked him like, well, is it okay if I touch your neck? And it was, you know, tentative, but yes. But like just getting her to touch her neck was a huge thing. So anyways, we are going to touch her neck. And if you're fearful of touching your neck, it's okay. You don't have to touch your neck. But if you want to try some of this just lying on your back, you can. I just basically want to have us go into a neck stretch. And most people will go like this, which I demonstrated on my, ooh, I got a little crack, which I demonstrated on my video for today. But I wanted to go back
I'm
to.
I'm going to pause real quick,
Yeah.
Kim, just because I think that was a helpful moment. You'll notice that Kim said, ooh, I got a crack in my neck. If you have the sort of self-talk like, uh-oh, I have a crack in my neck, Kim just showed you a different way where she was like, oh, that was kind of fun, right? That
Yeah,
would be
exactly.
go ahead, keep going.
So I wanted to go back to my first point, was that when we do certain things like repetitively like this, we may not be moving the things that need to be moved. So instead of just pulling your neck over to the side, I want you to imagine like you could actually flex 7 individual vertebrae in your neck. So you'll start at the top and you'll work your way into a neck stretch. And then I kind of like to let people like kind of explore, like, can you push into the stretching side versus crunching on your flexing side, and just kind of see what that feels like. And then go ahead and like kind of explore it. Like maybe if you go this way, chin towards the shoulder a little bit more, and then this way. And then anyone who deals with chronic neck pain, which I've never mentioned, but I used to have chronic neck pain. If this feels like, oh, don't do that, then here is the first thing that you can do very easily is just back it off a little bit. And now it's just a tiny neck flex to the side, but now explore there. And then you'll find typically as I do that with people, and usually I do because I like to say you have a bowling ball on your neck. So like put your bowling ball on the floor and do this if you're dealing with chronic neck stuff, because then your bowling ball is supported and your neck doesn't feel like it's holding a bowling ball as you do this exploration. But typically what happens is as people start to do, bending from the top, working through all 7 vertebrae, and then just kind of exploring the stretch, they bring themselves into a deeper stretch without me having to do it. I don't say anything. I'm just like the guide, and you're sort of, the explorer, and I'm just sort of guiding you through it. So
you're the body Sherpa.
What?
You're the
Oh,
body,
the body
Sherpa.
Sherpa. Oh my God, can I use that?
Go ahead.
So anyways, that is a technique that I like to use, especially with the neck. The neck is a super particular one. So that's one that I like to use. So trying to move through all the different segments. And then if you feel insecure, just back out a little bit, but don't leave it completely. Like draw those curtains open.
Yeah. A little bit of an oyster,
yeah, that's
tasting.
Right. A little oyster bite to set you off.
Yeah, I love that. I think we're probably at the end of the time. So for those of you that are watching, I don't know if you have any questions, you can certainly drop it. We just talked about, it's not about having more reps. It's not about pushing harder or harder work. It's not about having perfect form. It is simply starting to be able to explore and show your nervous system that it can lean into some of these movements. And that's really that repetition there that is going to help you create real change. I think next week we're sort of bringing things all together, right, Kim?
Yeah, so we're gonna sum up our little project, chronic pain little project that we've been doing with the IG Lives, but I'm sure we'll get together again. Yeah, both of our schedules are sort of getting a little wild. So I know mine is crazy right now, but yes, we're going to be putting it all together next week, right? Yes, next week. And we're going to tie in how we can build a body that feels safe and strong.
Absolutely.
Keeping everything in mind that we've talked prior.
For sure. Thank you all for joining us.
Yes.
See you next week.
Yes. Bye, everybody.